Hey guys, what's up? Today I'll finally be ranking the entire The Legend of Heroes series, including the Trail series and the ones that no one cares about except me and maybe just a couple of you. And for this video I'll be ranking all of them, even the ones that never came out of Japan, with the exception of one because I couldn't find a proper way to play it. Anyway guys, this is only my personal opinion, my ranking, not yours, and with that clarified, let's begin! We are going to start with the game that started it all, The Legend of Heroes, which was a sub-series of the Dragon Slayer series. It's kinda weird, but that's what The Legend of Heroes was born. Dragon Slayer. I played the TurboGrafx 16 version on an emulator, and I gotta admit, it impressed me. I was completely surprised on how good the game has aged in terms of graphics and gameplay mechanics. It's just a freaking grind fest. That's the biggest problem of this game. It's good, it's still good, and I think for its time, this was a great RPG. It has great music, it's Falcom for Christ's sake, but it has one of the absolute worst voice acting in English. It's so bad, it's actually really funny. And the story is good, it's okay, and the gameplay is, well, it's a grind fest, like I said before, and its biggest problem is precisely that. The game is self-aware, and even the first party member that joins your party tells you that you gotta be level 8 before you access the certain area that you need to cross to move forward with the story. And as soon as you realize about this, you're like level 3, I believe, and you gotta be level 8, and it takes forever to level up in this game, to gain one single level. Wow, you know, everything is good, it's decent, it's playable in this game, but that can kill your experience instantly. Because as soon as you're level 8, eventually you'll be in another area or another dungeon where you'll have to level up a hell of a lot as well. So it's a big ass grind fest. It's a hard game, alright, and I do recommend it for hardcore players, especially the ones that like the retro games. It's still a great game, great music, fantastic turn-based RPG. The story is alright, the characters are charismatic, you get involved with them, and I think I'm gonna give it a B. So there's a sequel with the same name, Dragon Slayer, The Legend of Heroes 2. That one never came out of Japan. I don't know if there's a fan translation out there. I didn't play the game. That's the game I'm not gonna be ranking in this list, sadly. Next up is the Gagharv trilogy. The first games on the PSP, I think they were released initially on PC, then ported by Exceed, I believe, on the PSP, and nobody cares about these games. These are more like hidden gems. A lot of people don't know these games exist, and they're part of the Legend of Heroes series. To make matters worse, first we got the second game in this trilogy, A Tear of Vermilion, and then we got the first one, localized as The Legend of Heroes 2. I don't know the reason, but you know, I'm gonna rank them in chronological order, which means The Legend of Heroes Prophecy of the Moonlight Witch. That's the first game in this trilogy, and it's a turn-based RPG as well. You know, it kind of initiated that. It's not exactly a top-down view perspective, but a little bit like that. And then I love how the fact that when the characters attack, they seem to be bumping into one another, just like as if you were playing the original Ys games. You know, I see what you did there, Falcom. That was cool, that was pretty cool. But you know, this first game in the series, in this trilogy, is very generic. The story is like extremely cliche and just boring. It's a boring game. It's an easy as hell game. There's like zero challenge here. It's one of the easiest RPGs I ever played in my life. And it's very short. I mean, I beat this game in like 15 hours. So it's okay. It did everything decent, I guess. It's playable, it's enjoyable, but it's also forgettable. So this game, I'm gonna give it a C. The next one, A Tear of Vermilion, which is the first one we got, the sequel, it's far better. No, you don't have to play Prophecy of the Moonlight Witch to understand this one. This entire trilogy are standalone games, they are connected, they take place in the same universe, and there are some references, some character cameos of the other games and so on, but you can just start with any of these three games. And A Tear of Vermilion is a better game, darker story, more mature, better character development, more fleshed out in terms of gameplay and story progression. It's good, it's better, it's more challenging, that's what's important. It's not hard, there are some hard areas, some hard bosses here and there, and the final boss is brutal, man. You're gonna have to grind near the end, but I do recommend this game far better than the other one. I'm gonna give it a B. Now the third game, Song of the Ocean, that is another good game, but for some reason they went back to the generic formula on storytelling of the first game, of Prophecy of the Moonlight Witch. I beat this game as well. This was the last one I beat out of the 3, and I gotta admit, it's good, it's decent, it's a little bit better and more fleshed out than the first game. It's another one of those 25 to 30 hours long game, but you know, the characters, they barely did anything for me. Sure, they're charming, and there's some interesting political ideas, you know, which probably laid the path, the influence to the Trails series later on. But, you know, as an RPG, in terms of story and characters, it's just okay. To be honest, it doesn't stand out, they did nothing different. It's just like Tear of Vermilion. It is, in terms of gameplay and graphics and battle system, it's just the same game again. It's good, I do recommend it. Think of these 3 games as hidden gems, Tear of Vermilion being the better one in my opinion. So I'm gonna give A Song of the Ocean a C. Okay guys, we're finally to the Trails series, also known as the Kiseki series, the one everybody knows and everybody loves, even you, and if you don't, what are you doing here? Trails in the Sky on the PSP, that's the first one we ever got, and just like the previous trilogy, these are games that were originally released on PC only in Japan, and then we got fan-translated versions for the PC and PSP ports. Now, you guys know I'm a huge, die-hard fan of the entire Kiseki series, and Trails in the Sky 1 and 2 might just be among my favorites. Trails in the Sky, the first one, is a bit of a slow game, but it's hard to treat these games separately. You see, there's 3 games in the Sky series, sub-series. It's the first arc in the ginormous Trails series that's still ongoing nowadays. And these first 3 games, the first 2 are on the PSP, and the other one, the PSP version, we never got it, just the PC version, and then there was a fan-translated version on the PlayStation Vita. That's the one I played. And like I said, it's hard to treat them separately, but for the sake of this ranking video, I'll do just that. So, as a standalone title, just the first game, it's a bit of a slow fest, but the characters are so charming, and little by little it starts dragging you into this enormous political situation, and then you start noticing, wow, this is very good writing. I mean, there's an abyss of a difference between this game and the others, and many other JRPGs of all kind. So it's very impressive how they managed to create these little charming cliche tropes, anime tropes, and this charismatic story taking place in the brink of an ongoing war. So it's a fantastic game. The battle system was much better than in the Gagharv trilogy. It involved a little bit of strategy, like moving around in grids, so small grids. It's still turn-based, natural, plain, simple turn-based, but it does add that little extra to the battle mechanics, and I love that. And Estelle is probably one of my absolute favorite female characters of all time, of all video games. I love her so much, and when she made an appearance in the Trails of Cold Steel series and in the Crossbell series on the PSP that never came out of Japan, wow, I squealed. Yeah, I'm such a fanboy. I'm gonna give this game an A as a standalone. Now the sequel, digital only for whatever stupid ass reason, well, I played it, and I want you guys to know that Trails in the Sky was the very first Trails game I ever played, and I had to wait several years to play the sequel. Several years. Like, I played Trails in the Sky in 2012 or 13, I remember, and the sequel I played it like 3 years ago. So imagine, you know, some parts of the game I couldn't understand. I felt the need to go back to the original, but I didn't because the game picks up rather quickly. It does get eventually to a part where you gotta do a bunch of side quests and it gets boring and it's slow at first, just for a few hours, but then it picks up once again and it doesn't let you go. This is a great conclusion to this duology of games that should be treated always, in my opinion, as if they were one game cut into 2 parts, just part 1 and part 2. And there's a reason why they're called first chapter and second chapter. It's the same game, same character, same story, same battle mechanics. Small, very small improvements in the second game, but nothing really noticeable. This is a fantastic closure. It didn't end there. They came up with a third game, but as a fantastic closure, this is almost a masterpiece. It's a straight S for me. Now the third one, I played the PS Vita version, which has improved graphics, slightly different character design and art style, and the translation in English was very arrogant. The grammar was superb, but they took a lot of liberties. Like sometimes it's almost fully voiced in Japanese, so sometimes the characters in Japanese will say something like "ah," and the translators will add an entire sentence out of that. How can "ah" or "huh" translate into such an enormous sentence or a freaking paragraph? That pissed me off. But okay, that was the only way to play the PlayStation Vita version that stayed in Japan. And it's a fantastic game. It's different because it's more of a dungeon crawler. You don't go around cities and landscapes and areas and different kinds of dungeons. No, it's one enormous dungeon. It's beautiful. It's so engaging. Every part is different. And if you're a big fan of the first two games, you're gonna love this game as well. And that's important to know because this game has two different main characters, Kevin and Reyes, and they grow on you really quickly. I ended up loving Reyes, and she became one of my favorite female characters in the entire Kiseki arc. You have to be a fanboy or a fangirl of the first two games, otherwise you might or might not enjoy this game as much as I did. Either way, I strongly recommend it, but yes, you have to first play the other two before jumping into this one. To me, this third entry and final entry in the Trails in the Sky arc is also a must play. Even if you play the vanilla PC version that is fully translated, officially translated by Exceed, I believe. I'm gonna give this game an A. Moving on to Zero no Kiseki and Ao no Kiseki. It's the same as Trails in the Sky 1 and 2. It's like one is the first chapter and the other one is the second chapter. Exact same game, graphics, character, story, everything. The second one had some improvements here and there, but nothing really that stands out. And yes, I play the PSP versions, not the PlayStation Vita Evolution versions, which are better, I believe. The first one had a pretty rough translation, it's kinda bad, full of grammar mistakes, and the other one was much better, more enjoyable, and much better grammar. You can see the difference if you play both PSP fan-translated versions. Now these two are amazing games. They take place in the same universe, but in the city of Crossbell. Trails in the Sky took place in the Liberal Kingdom, and these two take place in a city called Crossbell, which is nearby. They all take place in the same universe. Do you need to play Trails in the Sky first to understand these ones? Yes, you do. It's not absolutely indispensable, but yes, in my opinion, you have to play Trails in the Sky first to get into these games. Because the main characters of Trails in the Sky are very important characters in these first two games, specifically in the first one. So you won't be able to understand anything at all if you don't play Trails in the Sky first. And honestly, if you are going to make me choose between Sky and these two games, I'm gonna go with Sky. But I gotta admit, they're just as fantastic. Great writing, great character development. The first one starts a little bit slow, but you start noticing that this is just like a trending in the entire Kiseki series. All of them start really slow, but then when they pick up, man. They become really, really good games. No wonder a lot of people love them, and no wonder this series has become so famous and so popular nowadays. It is because of that. Because I've seen a lot of people just playing these games and they're like, oh my god, this game is boring, it's slow. Why do you think there's a lot of fans of this series? It's because you gotta be patient, you gotta keep playing them until the characters, the story and everything grows enough on you, and then you won't be able to let them go. I'm gonna rank both games on the A tier. Next up is Nayuta no Kiseki, also known as Nayuta Endless Trails. This game doesn't have the Legend of Heroes title in it, but I'm gonna treat it as a part of the series nonetheless, because it's a Trails game, right? But it's a spin-off, it's more of a spin-off. and it's an action RPG. It plays a little bit like Ys 7 on the PSP, but you don't have party members. You're just Nayuta, and you have a summon with you helping you out. It's a very good game. I never finished this one because there are some puzzles almost like Alondra level, very hard to understand, like what the hell am I supposed to do here? I got lost often, so it has some problems here and there, but on the other hand, the graphics look great, the controls feel good, the battle system is amazing, it's fast-paced, not as fast-paced as the Ys games, mind you, but fast-paced nonetheless, and the story is very interesting in this game. I talked about this game on my fan-translated Hidden Gems video, be sure to check it out. It's a very interesting story, and it never came out of Japan. Yeah, that's right, Japan only, but thankfully it is fan-translated, so the only way to play this game is to emulate it. Nayuta, I'm gonna give this a B. It's a great game nonetheless. Last but not least, we've got the Trails of Cold Steel arc. That's the one that is the most popular out of them all, the one that most people have played, mainly because most of its versions are playable on different platforms, were localized, officially localized, so it's easier to get into these games than in the others. But yes, these 4 games take place after the ones that never came out of Japan on the PSP and after Trails in the Sky. In other words, they take place after Crossbell and Liberl, now in the Kingdom of Erebonia, the Empire. And they have fantastic characters, fantastic writing. The battle system, in my opinion, is the best in the entire Kiseki universe. I love the battle system so much, it's so great, so much fun, so a little bit strategic, with so many options here, the skills, the CP, the magic, the arts. Even if you don't like this story type of characters, so play this game for the battle system, it's so much fun. So alright, the first game, I'm gonna give it an A. It's an excellent game, but it's a little bit of a slow fest, like the other games. It doesn't pick up until halfway through the game when the characters have finally grown on you and you start seeing them dragged into the Erebonia conflict, the World War that's about to happen soon, and some mysterious, ancient, evil shenanigans that's going on, behind the curtains, and also the same evil organization called Ouroboros that's been there since Trails in the Sky. It's very interesting how all these games connect. That's what makes them so goddamn fun to play and interesting. And the second game, it picks up right from the start, it doesn't let you go, it's great. Just like Trails in the Sky, the second chapter, it is a great conclusion to this first part. I loved it so much that, in my opinion, it's almost a masterpiece. The second game is an S tier for me. Now the third game is like the main character from the first 2 games, Rin Schwarzer. He's now a teacher, he's no longer a student. He's a teacher in the same school, teaching new characters are there, and it's a bit of a slow... Out of the 4 games, this one is the slowest, it takes forever to really pick up. It picked up for me when I was like 15 hours into the game, but like I said, the moment it picked up, it didn't let me go. It became another fantastic adventure. Trails of Cold Steel 3, in my opinion, is another excellent game. I'm gonna give it an A. And the 4th game that I finished quite recently, literally a couple of days ago, I loved it. I loved it. Everything you want as a fanatic of the Kiseki series, of the Trail series, is right there. The characters, I'm sorry for the spoiler, but the characters from Trails in the Sky and the Crossbell series, the Crossbell duology, are there, playable, not all the time, but in several missions, and that was so great. Seeing all these characters, these main characters together in the same party was just mind-blowing. I'm such a fanboy of this series, guys, and this was the perfect closure of the entire Kiseki series so far. For me, the ending of this game was cheesy as hell, the power of friendship every 5 seconds, but the final battle, the final events, the final explanation, how it leaves something for the next game that came out in Japan last month, I believe, Hajimari no Kiseki, how it paved the way for that particular game. You can feel that right at the end of this one, and it's just so good. They wrapped all the important things up from the other 3 games, and they left something for the next one. I love that. So this is a masterpiece, man. This is, in my opinion, along with Trails in the Sky, the second chapter, It might be my favorite in the entire Trails series. An S for me. Okay, so here's a little extra for you. It's not exactly a Legend of Heroes game, it's just a crossover between the Ys series and Trails in the Sky. But it's more specifically Ys 7 versus Trails in the Sky. And it's a fighting game, arena-like in fully 3D. And it's good. The controls resemble more Ys 7 than Trails, obviously. It's a fighting game, never came out of Japan, it's not translated. I didn't see a fan translation out there, so I couldn't understand a single thing. I want to play the story mode because it seemed interesting, you know, if these games stand out for something, it's for their stories. But I couldn't understand anything because it's all in Japanese. Regardless, you know, I understood the fighting part, and it's fun. It's an okay game, could have been better. Had it been a 2D fighting game, it would be much better for me, but that's just me. It's an okay fighting game, could have been better, and if only the story was in English, maybe I would be ranking this game higher, but for now, I'm gonna give it a C. And before I wrap this up, I want to say one thing. I treat all these games separately, but every single arc of the Trail series together, these 9 games total, if you treat these games as if they were only 3 games, each and every single one of them is a masterpiece, is an S tier in my opinion, and you should play them. They're awesome, they're amazing games, and how they all come together as if they were just one extremely long ass video game is perfect. JRPG perfection. I love this series so much. And that's my ranking of the entire Legend of Heroes series, including the Trail series that I love so much. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time!